Well, there are many ways to look at that game. 8 balls to spare, you say? Well, that's not quite the reflection on what really happened at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. There just were not enough runs put on the board by Kolkata, and it was fairly easily, clinically chased down by Rajasthan. 134 for 4. You'd have to say it wasn't exactly exciting. It wasn't boundaries flying all over the place as we are used to in Mumbai. But to Rajasthan's credit, they didn't need to do that. They didn't do that. And their captain played a very Chris Gayle-like innings, if you remember the other night. And 42 of 41, not quite the strike rate he's used to, but the strike rate that was needed to win them 2 points. And he did exactly that. So well done to Sanju Samson and the Rajasthan Royals. To try and make sense of it, if sense is the right word, I'm in the company of Simon Doull and Joy Bhattacharjya. Simon, just to remind you, this is sort of a family show. So if you had to put it in very kind terms of what went wrong for Kolkata, go ahead.
Ordinary. I don't know what I can sort of... it starts with S. Ends in T. Ordinary, very ordinary indeed. It was a poor performance. It was a poor performance from Kolkata. It's not one they'll recover from in a hurry, I don't think. There's a lot of issues in and around that team, whether it be the confidence to play with aggression at the top, the middle order not quite firing, sending players in still, I think, at the wrong time with Sunil Narayan's case. And then, Andre Russell's their leading wicket taker with 7 on the back of a 5-wicket bag. So they're not getting the wickets up front either from Prasid or from Pat Cummins that they need. There's just things just aren't quite clicking for Kolkata. Sanju Samson impressed. That's a very impressive innings from him for me because it was needed. It was what the captain needed to do to get his side across the line. Win at all costs almost attitude by saying, I have to be the one to do the job. He did it.
Yeah, and that's just a reminder of exactly what Simon's talking about. 42 of 41, you can look in the history of Sanju Samson's innings. You will not find a strike rate like that because once he gets started, he starts flowing. But when he saw what was required, leadership and, of course, controlling himself, knowing that he's thrown it away in the past, was that not out. The asterisk, I think, was the most important part of the innings, Joy.
Yeah, and I think whether it's Kumar Sangakkara, the rest of the staff, or he himself who's just sat down, this is a very important knock. Not just for the Royals, but for Sanju personally, because it showed something that he had not shown before this, that he was capable of. That's draining in his natural qualities of being able to hit the ball, to play completely safe, riskless cricket. He came in and the first thing he did was he had this marvelous cover drive. And the first thing all his supporters and fans said, oh God, don't throw it away. Which is what he does. He hits these beautiful couple of shots and then he throws it away. And then he proceeded to play absolutely and totally riskless cricket. And I think it's a very important landmark in his development as a player. And it bodes well for both him, Indian cricket, and of course the Rajasthan team for this tournament.
Yeah, I think from the team's perspective, I mean, it will stand him in good stead, Simon. But from the team's perspective, it was important. I mean, for both these teams, 2 points were vital today to just make sure that they've got the oxygen in the lungs and they're moving in an upward direction. But, well, it's only one team who could get the 2 points. Rajasthan got it. And if they look back, if they do make it to the playoffs and they look back, this is a game they look at.
Yeah, some people might be saying, well, why didn't they sort of go a little bit harder in the latter stages to try and just up their net run rate a little bit? The most important thing for them in this occasion was the 2 points. And it wasn't about as much as about the net run rate. In 2 or 3 games' time, if they're sort of another 2 points on the board or another 4 points on the board, they can maybe look at that run rate scenario. Tonight was all about 2 points, I think. So there's not a lot of confidence in that outfit, or there wasn't prior to tonight. So that was what was going to restore a little bit of confidence and keep them in the hunt. If they had gone hammer and tong and missed out, they're sort of like Kolkata. They're almost out of the hunt after only 5 games played, which makes things very difficult.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing we might have speculated on. If they're close, will they have a Morris go in? Will they go hard? Will Miller go hard? The answer was very quickly no. And have a look at this. The importance was the 4 points. They now sit above Hyderabad. They're not going to look at that net run rate, which isn't the prettiest. In fact, it's even lower than Kolkata's. But what's important is that they've got the 2 extra points. And Owen Morgan, Joyce said after that these are 2 huge points we've let go of. And he's aware of it.
Yeah, he's aware of it, because he would have said that of all the chances, if you're 1-3 in this tournament, the one team you want to play against is Rajasthan. You look around and say, if Owen Morgan had to pick a team to say, who am I going to play against? He'd say, I want Rajasthan. And that's it. He knows, he's a smart enough captain. He knows what he's done and he knows what's happened to him. And I think, when we are looking at run rate, it's not that they didn't try. They sent in Rahul Tewatia and said, go and hit. Okay. It didn't work. Okay. For whatever reason. So Rahul Tewatia hit, Shivam Dube, both had had the go and hit, because there's David Miller behind you. He'll stabilize things. So they did try. It didn't work. They said, okay, now let's get back to the main plan, which is from now on, when we are 100 for 4, we're not going to give away any wickets. So if you see at 100 for 4, they were fairly far ahead of the run rate. After that, they slowed down and said, we are not going to take a single more risk while the run rate is below 6. And so you can't blame them for not trying to outplay. They did.
Yeah, fair enough. And it was David Miller, in fact, who also played sort of well within himself. He too is a free-flowing stroke maker. Imagine Sanju Samson and David Miller batting in tandem in Mumbai. You'd be telling yourself, okay, let's watch the fireworks. There aren't any fireworks. Nothing's happening there. Nobody's even lighting anything more than a little sparkler. But that's exactly what was needed. And it happened from both ends. We didn't give credit to David Miller.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was, we said in the pre-show, I think, talked about Miller's form at the international level coming into this tournament. He's had 1 fine innings through the tournament as well. He got undone by a rip-snorting delivery in his previous encounter. Didn't even get off the mark. So responsible. And I think Joy makes a good point, actually. They did try with Tewatia and Shivam Dube. So, yeah, in the end, it was down to Miller and Samson to just play responsibly, get them across the line. They'll feel a lot better about that now and about that performance, because not only did they get the runs and the 2 points, I think they bowled really well. Maybe when you look at it now, they bowled a little bit better than perhaps we gave them credit for. We said Kolkata were poor, which they were, but I think Rajasthan bowled particularly well too.
Yeah, and I think what Owen Morgan has pointed out is he did say that this is not the Wankhede pitch we are used to. He said they were 40 short. It's not often you have a captain admitting that. Right. But even 40 short means it's 170, 175. So it wasn't the kind of 200 pitch we are used to. But he admitted that Rajasthan sort of adapted better to the difference in surface much more than we did.
Yeah, I think the kind of bowlers Rajasthan also have suit surfaces where the ball doesn't quite come on. So Mustafizur, Jaydev Unadkat, if you see their career record, they've always taken wickets of slow deliveries. I mean, Mustafizur, every wicket he's taken this year is of slow deliveries. They're masters of that. Chetan Sakaria can mix it up really well. And of course, you have Rahul Tewatia, who's, the leggy who changes it up. So this is a pitch that suits them. They don't like pace on the ball, except for Chris Morris. Nobody else puts too much pace on the ball. And that's fine for them. I actually feel Kolkata's attack is less adapted to this because, Shivam Mavi doesn't use that many slow balls. Prasidh Krishna, slow balls, he bowls some real jaffas, but slow balls is not his strength because he'll fold 2-3 really good balls and give that bad ball away. And similarly, you have Pat Cummins. So if Pat Cummins has to bowl slow balls, he's not really being Pat Cummins. He's not being that dominant bowler.
Yeah. Well, Morris, I suppose you have to look at those 4 wickets that, really broke the back in the middle of that Kolkata innings. But probably, Simon, if you look at that and assess that, it was the bowlers that Joy just mentioned who set it all up for Chris Morris at the other end because they realized that that's our scoring option.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Morris is trying to put pace on, I thought he's bowled actually pretty well for the most part in this tournament. He does take pace off quite nicely, and bowling from that height, those little off-cutters that he bowls late in the piece, he's more known for the Yorkers and the pace on, but he does have those options. He's now won them. He's won them 1 game with the bat. He's had a couple of very good games with the ball. So, he's starting to justify the tag. He's starting to justify Mr. Moneybags, which he's been labelled with a little bit. So that's what you want. I mean, each player in a franchise, yes, some are paid more than others, but if each player in your franchise can win you a game almost single-handedly, you're going to be okay. Well, he's won 2 games pretty much for them now, so I think he's starting to sort of justify where he was at in the auction.
Yep, fair enough. And the good thing from an all-rounder's point of view is he's won this one in a sense with ball in hand, and the previous game was that fabulous run chase that Morris essayed. So that was against Delhi, and that is, of course, the city where they head to next, Rajasthan. Morris has played there, and he'll know all about it. But that's still in the future. For now, let's not look too ahead in the future, except maybe 24 hours ahead. Yep, less than 24 hours, because we're talking about a double header, Super Sunday, 2 big games coming up. And the first of them in the afternoon is going to be the Royal Challengers Bangalore taking on Chennai, the top table clash. It's going to be at the very same ground. The big question really will be, is it going to be the kind of wicket we saw Virat Kohli get back in form? Is it going to be the kind of wicket which saw Devdutt Padikkal pick up that fantastic 100? Or are we going to have the kind of wicket that saw Kolkata struggle on today? That's going to be the big question, Simon. In terms of the surface, is it something that changes between tonight and tomorrow afternoon?
Well, what we have found, I think, is that for the most part, the earlier games produced a few more runs. And we've just found certain pitches that have actually played better than other ones. What I think has happened is, as we've got into the 2 weeks in the tournament, there hasn't been as much moisture put into the block by the groundsmen in between games. So they've dried out a little bit. They've got a little bit slower. They've turned a touch at times as well. So the dew later in the evening, and this hasn't been a huge amount, has just probably made that bit of a difference in the chasing scenario. Look, as Owen Morgan said, they're not 130, 140 pitches. They're still 160, 170 on a bad one. 215, 220 when you get a good one. So this game is going to come down to the fact that Chennai have played their games at Mumbai, and they've been successful on low-scoring ones. They've been successful on high-scoring ones. So I think, it's just going to come down to who plays the best cricket tomorrow. It's a mouth-watering contest. It's one that I look forward to. The losing team will not be out of it tomorrow. The winning team will be going a long way to making the playoffs.
And what we saw from that, Joy, I think the first thing that strikes you, unlike some of the other teams in the tournament, is that Chennai have won chasing, they have won defending. So they'll want all that under their belt when they come up against a powerful, unbeaten team like Bangalore.
Yeah, I was just looking back to the time when the last time we had both a dominant Chennai and dominant Bangalore. And I actually, go back to 2011 when they met in the finals. Because, that's the thing that they haven't been, when Chennai has been up there, Bangalore sometimes hasn't quite been up to scratch. And then Chennai hadn't been around for a couple of years. And then when Bangalore had a little bit of a recovery last year, Chennai was nowhere. So these two teams are both, in many ways, very proud franchises, great support bases. And this is the year that both look to be potential champions. If you look at that sort of mix of potential champions, there's Mumbai, no matter how many they lose, they're still there in the mix. There's Delhi, there's Chennai, and there's Bangalore. These are the 4 teams that guys are looking at and saying, these are there. And if you look in terms of form, Chennai and Bangalore are the 2 informed teams. So it's a mouth-watering clash in many ways. And Virat versus Dhoni, what's more to ask for?
Yeah, we haven't even come to that yet. But if you've mentioned personnel, what we generally try and do in a preview is to speculate perhaps on any changes. And if we have a look at the squad that's available, and let's bring up Chennai first, since we've already mentioned them. We've seen their performances so far. And they have had the opportunity to play around with some of their foreign players. The one thing that will really stand them in good stead is that Ruturaj Gaikwad, in whom they kept faith, has now shown what he's capable of, Simon. So do you see them needing to make any changes?
I don't see them needing to make changes. It just depends on what they do with Dwayne Bravo. They are quite open about the fact that last couple of seasons when Bravo's been around and fit, he's just tapered off a bit towards the back end. He's had little injuries. He's had niggles. He's getting older now. So they're just managing him. And if they can still win managing Bravo, then they're in for a good time of it. Now, whether they bring him back, whether they look to play the Behrendorff, or whether they look to stick with Ngidi, I don't have a problem with that. But that's about the only change I see. Those guys. The rest of it looks very, very solid to me. And you know what it's like. I mean, I joked with MS at the toss in the third game. I said, "Chennai don't make changes, do they?" He said, "No, same team." It's just like, that's kind of how you roll. That's how you roll. You're surprised when they make, you're blown away if they make two, and you're surprised a little bit if they make one.
Yeah, the last time it was that they've got Lungi and Gidi in. That's when they rested Bravo. That's about one change. We were expecting that Ruturaj Gaikwad would finally give way to maybe Robin Uthappa. That didn't happen. They kept faith. It was a justified decision. And ironically, Joy, the first thing that Ruturaj Gaikwad said, a lot of people in the franchise spoke to me and kept me in good spirits, led by Robin Uthappa.
No, that's Robin is a wonderful cricketer and a wonderful guy. He's been on Cricbuzz as well, but I've known him for many, many years, and he is one of the guys. He's a completely selfless cricketer. Great to have in the dressing room. Even now, when you see him outside, wearing the bibs and rushing out, his attitude is so positive. And coming back to Simon's point, what he talked about, saying that Ngidi staying instead of Bravo. I think Ngidi probably will stay here, because if you look at the Bangalore batting, it's a front-loaded batting. Okay, unlike KKR or all these, it's a front-loaded batting. So it's there. It's Virat, Devdutt, AB, all these guys in one cluster. Glenn Maxwell, they're all there in one cluster. If you need to take wicket up front, he's the guy. Bravo is never going to bowl you in the first 6, 8, 10 overs. If they're going to say, do we have wicket-taking bowlers? Deepak Chahar is a wicket-taking bowler, definitely, especially if the ball through just a little bit, whatever little bit, he'll get something in the first couple of overs. Ngidi is a wicket-taking bowler, and I think Dhoni would never miss a trick and say that, I'm going to wait for the back and try and contain. Containment is not an option, not with this pitch, not with Bangalore's batting.
Yeah, when we think of containment, and we think of containment zones in a very different context. But Mumbai, they'll want to turn that stadium into one, will the Chennai bowlers. But what about the opposition? They've been dominant. They've been invincible. Now, the question is, when they have that first hurdle, I mean, that they're going to have a bad day. And probably they want to have it early in the tournament, not too late in the tournament. But again, in terms of personnel, Simon?
The only thing I can see from a Bangalore point of view, and I wonder whether they're a little bit worried about Yuzvendra Chahal. He hasn't been at his best, hasn't been picking wickets for them, has been a little bit expensive. Now, the only way I can see a change there is Navdeep Saini in, Kane Richardson out, Adam Zampa in, Yuzvendra Chahal out. So that's the only way. Now, whether they make that change, I don't know. I think they'll probably keep faith, and Chahal is an Indian player. He's an Indian international, but he hasn't been at his best. So I wonder whether there is an opportunity, now that they're 4 from 4, to give Saini a chance and maybe bring Zampa in to see whether he can do something a little bit more or not. Whether they make that, I don't know, but that would be the option if they were looking at something along those lines.
Yeah, in fact, I fully agree with you. Zampa has to be given a chance, because given their schedule, Zampa is going to be a vital bowler. See, all leg spinners are going to be vital at some point in time in this tournament, because, as the pitches get older and slower and older and slower. So expect Imran Tahir to come in as well. But what's going to happen out here is you need to give Zampa a run in at some point in time. They might also do, if you think about it, they could do a straight Richardson for Zampa swap as well. And say, we'll play the extra spinner. Of course, it's not the surface on which you play that many spinners as well. I mean, that's a fair point taken. But I somehow, because of Virat Kohli's relationship, and for Virat, you're right. Chahal is almost like a talisman, somebody who he regards in the field. Again, that relationship of he goes to Chahal a lot because Chahal knows a lot of the domestic cricket, knows the fielders, knows the positions. So I can't see him leaving Chahal out very easily. That's the only reason. But otherwise, I would love to see Zampa given a run as early as possible.
So, a few possibilities that we've just thrown out there. But one thing we know, whatever the final 11s end up being, it will be a cracker of a contest on what should be a hot Sunday afternoon in Mumbai. But it's not the only game we're talking about. There's going to be a double header, and after it finishes in Mumbai, as the sun sets and it becomes a little less hot and humid down south in Chennai, it's going to be Hyderabad against Delhi. Yes, Delhi, they're still around. They've had a break for 6 games. And just in case you've forgotten all about them, they're coming storming back, the men from the north. So Delhi versus Hyderabad, they've not had the worst start. They've almost had a kind of scenario where they wanted to keep on winning ways. But one personnel change we'll have to confirm to all of you before we look at the teams is that Natarajan has officially been ruled out of the entire tournament. And that's going to be a bit of a blow because we know what a match winner he can be, Simon.
Yeah, it's a real tough blow for Natarajan. I think, he's a hard man to replace. And not only up front or in the early overs when he said he doesn't tend to use the new ball too much, but the middle, slower surfaces, Chennai has really suited him. But just the Yorkers, I mean, I think I'll put him down along with Bumrah as the best Yorker bowler. I think, that I've seen for a little while. He fires them in as good as anyone, and a left armer. He gives you that great option at the back end. So he's going to be a massive loss for them.
Yep. Let's just, if we can, before we have a look at the team, since we had a look at the schedules, if we can get the schedules, which obviously includes their victories and losses so far, that just puts things in perspective. And I think if you have a look at Hyderabad, it'll be very important what happened on the 21st of April. They were the only team who was pointless. Sounds like a strange word to say it when you put it like that, but without points, shall we say. And then those 2 points that they got against Punjab was so critical, not just for the 2 points, the manner in which they got them. So for Hyderabad, Joy, those 2 points on the board, they'll have a very different mindset coming to that Sunday night fixture.
Yeah, also what they've done is that they've now got Abhishek Sharma in as a bowler, okay? And the kind of overs he's giving means he's going to play. Definitely he's going to play. Do they back Vijay Shankar? Does Manish Pandey still stay out? And is Samad supposedly has a niggle? At some point, does he find a way back as well? Because they played Kedar Jadhav. He didn't do too much for them. He didn't need to last time because, the top order got things going. But what is going to happen to this team? All this team now needs to do is settle down. I think Abhishek Sharma, if he keeps giving them overs, is a huge, huge plus for them. Because it gives them that extra spinner. It also means they can play Kane Williamson then. Because he's giving them more with the ball than other spinners are giving them right now. And that means that the whole team composition, this team with 2 batsmen, with Bairstow, Warner and Kane Williamson, is a very different proposition than a team with just 2 of those guys and a Nabia Holder and Rashid Khan.
I think just the fact that Joyce just mentioned so many international players in one breath almost means that the one problem of all the 8 franchises, if you had to single out one who are sitting and scratching their heads about the 4 foreigners, it's got to be Hyderabad.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's a tough decision. What Kane Williamson brought to them in the last game was just some calmness. Johnny Bairstow has been sensational. He really is a terrific player. And David Warner has been, for the most part, a little bit circumspect in the early parts of this tournament. He's looked to try and play that anchor role, but he's ended up getting out, almost at the wrong time on a few occasions, which certainly hasn't helped. Williamson just brings that calm nature. It kind of captains the side, for want of a better term as well. I mean, David Warner's, when he's not playing, he's always at long on or long off talking to David Warner. He's Warner's sounding board when he's on the field. I think he makes David Warner feel a little calmer out in the middle as well. And I applaud them for dropping Manish Pandey. I mean, look, that needed to happen. We've shown his numbers. Everybody knows his numbers. He needed to know that he was not indispensable. He may come back later in the piece and he may perform well. He may do a job. But I actually applaud them for doing that. That's, it's not an easy thing to drop a high profile, in and out Indian player, but it's not an easy call to make. They made it. And I think it was the right one.
So that's what we feel, gentlemen, as far as the composition goes. A little harsh on Jason Holder, who was so good when he did play, but obviously someone had to make way to allow Kane Williamson to come in. Rashid keeps his place, as to Warner and Bairstow. So Nabi, Mujib, and Jason Holder have to make way for the moment. What about the opposition? What about Delhi? Once again, as far as they were concerned, they've had losses, they've had wins, but they will again want to get that momentum from the 2 wins that they've got, back-to-back wins against Punjab and Mumbai. I mean, I think that's the one. If we look again at April the 20th, Simon, it will not only be a good win, but it will be a good win against a team that they'd lost a whole bunch of matches against before that.
Yeah, a real morale-boosting win, and it's a double morale boost for them because I think they get their X-factor player back as well in Akshar Patel, and to me, he is a guy that sort of molds the middle order around him. He can win you a game with the bat, which we've seen in the last couple of years. He'll bowl you 4 overs, and in Chennai he's going to be crucial, and possibly later on in the tournament as well. So he comes back into that 7 position, I think, 6, 7, depend. It doesn't really matter because they've got such a strong middle to lower order. I think that he could almost bat anywhere in that lineup. And Anrik Nortje, do they bring him back in as well? I've been impressed with Avish Khan. So what they're getting, Avish Khan is keeping Ishant Sharma out of the side, Umesh Yadav out of the side. So that's been a great thing for them. Stoinis winning them a game, confidence that brings as well. I think they can do without Steve Smith, and I really do. I think their batting is so strong they can do without Steve Smith, and they can bring Akshar and Nortje into that lineup.
Yeah, you're not touching Amit Mishra at the moment, the way he's bowled. So you keep these guys in there. So maybe Lalit Yadav makes way if you're trying to sneak Akshar in, Joy?
Yeah, that's my worry because Lalit Yadav's been playing beautifully as well. And he's just been such a confidence booster. So, I mean, you're right. That will be a dream combination. See, Chennai pitch, it's possible as well. You play Akshar, you play Amit Mishra, okay? You play Lalit Yadav, okay? You play 2 international fast bowlers, and you're done. You don't need the extra Indian seamer. Maybe you drop Avesh Khan, and you go full. I mean, you go with 2. Because see, if you need that 3rd seamer, you have Stoinis to come and give you a few overs. You have Stoinis to come in and say, okay, I'm going to bowl a few. Because if you do that, that's this team. You cannot drop Amit Mishra at this point in time. And on Chennai, see, you may not play him in any other pitch. You may not pay him after you leave Chennai. But till you're in Chennai, Amit Mishra, you wake him up at 2 o'clock in the morning and throw him the ball and say, you're going to bowl the Chepauk, and he'll say, oh, fine, no problems at all.
Well, it's just, I think, just to conclude on Delhi, Simon, like we said with Hyderabad, if you've left somebody like Chris Woakes out, it means you've got some depth in that bench.
Yeah, it does, and I couldn't agree with that. That when they dropped Chris Woakes and played Steve Smith, I just couldn't agree with it. He'd been one of their better players in the early parts. He'd been a little bit unlucky. I know he's probably not offering what they would want with the bat, but I just think he's one of those players that he will always give 100%, and he'll always pick a wicket or 2 up front. But if they replaced him with Nortje, I get it. Absolutely 100%, but replacing him with Smith just didn't make much sense to me.
Well, at least they'll turn around and say, as long as we keep winning, this is what we're looking for. But yes, Akshar Patel is going to be the big news coming back. And yeah, he'd love the fact that once they finish in Chennai, they move to Ahmedabad, which is a place he kind of enjoys one way or the other. But we'll talk about that when they get to that part of the world. He'll be your neighbor, Simon Doull. So you look forward to catching up.
Yeah, just over there, like about 2 kilometres away, I think their hotel is.
There you go. That's where they're going to be very shortly. But at the moment, you don't have to look 2 kilometers away, because right here, right now is when we give you the reveal to our Joy Factor question.
Okay, so this one, it's a tough question, but I don't think I'm qualified to give the answer. So I will ask the question, Simon Doull will give the answers. So the question was, if Merv Hughes was the first and Hayden Gilchrist and Vaughan probably the most important, who was the last? And over to you, Simon.
Well, I did a little demonstration of who I thought the answer was, and it's quite significant, isn't it? Because today is the great Sachin Tendulkar's birthday. And all I did earlier on, and I'm afraid the screen is not quite big enough, but it was sort of and that was kind of how he used to bounce in and bowl those little leg spinners. And it was always just a little bounce, a lovely little bounce to Sachin's bowling. And yes, he could bowl the seamers, he could bowl the off spinners, he could do everything. What couldn't the greatest of all time do? The answer is Sachin Tendulkar's Test match wickets in Kolkata, 2001. Absolutely brilliant.
Yep. And of course, we talked about his first, which was a long time ago, which was, of course, Mervyn Hughes, then Hayden Gilchrist and Vaughan in the 2001 Kolkata Test match. And his last one was Shane Shillingford. Shane Shillingford was the last one, which would probably have been in his 199th Test match, if I'm not wrong. Yes, it was. 199th Test match when he picked up Shane Shillingford at the Eden Gardens in Kolkata. Well, that was the tough part of it. I think sussing out Sachin was the easy part of the question, Joy, but trying to remember Shane Shillingford was the tough one. Who did it best? Let's find out. The answer to our winner, and the second time we're getting a new Crick Rohit in the making. Bharat Reddy once again picks up title number 2 this season. Well done, mate. We've got a new contender, Joy, to look forward to.
Absolutely. The other thing is that I'm looking at the answers that, the regulars like Rohit and all have given, and they're so fast. And Rohit must be wondering, how is it that other guys are winning? Well, guys, I only want to tell you, our backroom staff checks time-stamped every tweet that comes in, and they check which has come faster or not. And somebody just came in first. It's just that we have so many such brilliant guys now. It's just a pleasure to watch them going. And I remember during the program when we asked the question, while you were wrapping up the show, I was looking at it and saying, the answers should be coming in. And right as rain, the answers were coming in right then before we finished the show.
Well, very quickly.
Maybe it's time, just quickly, maybe it's time, Joy, that we take the highest score from the day before. All right, so today's game, and who was the highest scorer in today's game? Someone got 39. What did Samson end up on? 40-something? So 41. Tomorrow's answer, 41. So tomorrow's question, it is the 41st person who gets it right that takes the prize.
That's going to be a nice one. But I was going to say, since we haven't reached midnight yet, very quickly, since we promised at the very start, one quick memory from each of you of celebrating a Sachin birthday. Simon, I know you've probably cut one on the field with him.
I have. We cut a cake, I think it's 3 years ago. Mumbai were playing Hyderabad, I think, at Wankhede Stadium, and Sachin was part of the Mumbai dugout. Of course, he was sidelined. I went down, did an interview. We had a beautiful cake sideline, and we had him cut the cake, and we had Wankhede Stadium sing "Happy Birthday" to Sachin. It was magnificent. It was in the IPL. I was working. It was great. Sideline interviewed him. Fantastic.
Yeah, he just went down for the cake, did Simon. Sachin was just the sideshow for that. Joy, yours?
Gautam, you will have many more, but this is one. We were producing a show for Sachin's 30th birthday. So it was basically a show, Sachin's 30th birthday. We were shooting with both Ravi Shastri, Harsha Bhogle, interviewing him, talking to him. And we had a whole lot of people congratulating him, from Lata Mangeshkar, who's India's Nightingale, to the Prime Minister of the country. Everyone was there on the show, just giving their wishes to Sachin. So the idea was we shoot this show. I was carrying the tape to Singapore. We edited it and put it out 2 days later. So the show finishes, and obviously, what do we do at the end of the show? Indian ceremony. Sachin cuts a cake. Ravi Shastri gives him a piece of cake. He has it, and that's the show for us. So we send it to the Singapore for editing, and it goes for editing. And the British producer, who's one of my best friends and one of the best producers ever, calls me and says, Joy, this show was really good, but I'm going to cut out that part with the cake. It just doesn't work, people feeding cake and all. And I said, look, I only want to tell you one thing. When you look at the newspapers tomorrow, the one picture that will be there is Ravi Shastri and Harsha Bhogle feeding Sachin the cake. Please keep it in. And of course, the next morning, the only picture was that of Sachin being fed the cake. And I just wanted to tell him that Sachin is not a cricketer in India. Sachin is an emotion.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had a very similar one. I'm not going to tell the entire story for paucity of time, but just a slight twist being when we were invited again to do a show at his house to cut a cake. And of course, there was a sequence where young Arjun had taken a bit of cake and rubbed it on his face, as did young Sara. And then when we were looking back at the footage, there was one of these producers who turned around and said, okay, let's edit this bit out. He's not looking nice. He's not looking his best. And then Sachin himself had more than given permission. He said, please use that bit, because that is what my bonding with the kids means. So, yeah, as you said, it's the emotion, it's the warmth, it's what our nation really loves the man for. His batsmanship, like as I said with Simon and going down for the cake, his batsmanship is secondary. It's the love that we had for him that comes first. So on that note, happy birthday, Sachin Tendulkar. On that note, thank you, gentlemen, once again, Joy Bhattacharjya and Simon Doull, for all these little extras, the kind of stories we just told. Yeah, the only place to go is Cricbuzz Plus. You've got to subscribe to it, and you will find lots and lots of interesting content and add-ons which you won't see on the regular Cricbuzz site, which will be so much fun. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you big doubleheader on Sunday. Time to say goodnight from Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle.